Neither of us, I think, imagined that it would last for 5 long months.
Imagine.
But it did. And coming out of that process, well, I think the entire country had looked to GECOM to make certain changes to ensure that the incidents that happened in 2020 would not repeat itself. I want to open up by asking you, 2 years on, where does the Guyana Elections Commission finds itself?
The Guyana Elections Commission is moving very slowly for my liking. But when you have what I would call like the audience tables, and we are not Hercules, progress is slow, especially when you're dealing with people who are willing to doubt everything that they've been accused of, you know, and people have to be giving hearing, and you have to go according to, and then the court gets involved. People go to the court, they file, and courts move slowly too. We have in place a CEO, thankfully. We'll soon have in place a legal officer. There might be other vacancies, but that is putting like people, you know, in positions.
Right.
What makes us move slowly?
I was going to ask
are some of the very actors who contributed to the whole 5-month delay. Some of whom are in the commission itself,
right?
Are commissioners. I was frustrated that the chairman of GECOM, who is a person like my age or thereabouts, I'm not even sure, was not willing to move faster during that 5-month period before, you know, during that whole thing. And I was frustrated, but I was never a high court judge, much less a court of appeal judge. And I suppose our chairman tries to dot all the legal I's and T's. But at the end of the day, the progress is coming, and it's coming slowly. There are all these factors we have to deal with. I'll tell you, the battle of the 5 months is not yet over in GECOM.
Right. Ms. Shadick, I'm very happy that you opened the way you did, because one of the public cries coming out of that 5-month period dealt specifically with the composition of GECOM and how the commissioners are appointed through the political process. And you talk about how that still affects the work going forward. How is that ever going to be addressed?
Unfortunately, that's not in the hands of GECOM or the commission. That's a constitutional thing. And that can only change by a constitutional change.
Right.
It's not something that I can change or any member of the commission can change.
But as a sitting commissioner, Ms. Shadick, would you advocate for that change?
I may, if I thought that there was any neutral person in this country. I'm convinced there is not. There are lots of people who shout from the rooftops and say, I'm not political, I don't take a political side. But then 4 sentences later, they take a political decision. You know, they have a political opinion. We don't really have, this is a small country. We have a small population. And unfortunately, events at the government level and events at the higher level reach the whole population very quickly. There are no barriers between a decision and the, you know, that it doesn't have to pass through too many stages. I mean, if you read Facebook, sometimes I'm amused, you know. You see things like JLM, knock them out. I mean, that's not how things are done. And
Right.
it's frustrating. It's frustrating for people to, anything, while what you're saying has merit, because really and truly, the commission is perceived to be divided down the middle. It's not necessarily so. For instance, personally, I don't really make decisions that the people want. I think I have earned that right to make decisions that I think that are fair. But you see, the thing is, where I came from, who nominated me to that position will always perceive to who is telling me what to do within the commission. And I tell you what, it's not easy being a female on a male-dominated commission. People would like me to sit down and shut my mouth. And in a meeting, there's so many personal, you talk about personal things being thrown in Parliament. You got to hear what happens in the commission meeting.
Ms. Shadick, I'm going to talk about the legislative changes that would need to accompany what GECOM is doing. And as you pointed out, that is largely out of the hands of GECOM, of the commission. What I want to talk to you about, however, is sort of the institutional changes that, in your reasonable assessment, should be effected. What are those? How far along in the process are we? And what more will it take for us to really start seeing the corrective action, the reassurance that we're not going to experience what we did in 2020 again?
That's quite a handful you're asking. First of all, it's not true to say that legislative changes are out of the hands of GECOM.
Right.
That's not quite true, because there are changes that affect what GECOM does. They may have been suggested by other people, but GECOM has been asked to give their input. I'll tell you what, in my opinion, the laws that we have, the only weakness we have is that the laws are scattered. They're not in the same place. But once somebody is able to put those things together, every contingency is covered. Kurt, the law wasn't wrong. People breached, people deliberately did what they were not supposed to do. Our problem is not the law. Our problem in that 5 months and those elections was the people. There is no law which said that Mingo was supposed to go into some room and do some spreadsheet and bring it in. No, the law is clear. There's no law which was followed by Raman Mingo. No.
Especially, GECOM has already done what it needed to do to remove most of those permanent employees who became compromised during the elections period.
No, what we have done is remove the top ones.
Right.
There are whole others down at the bottom. But the others down at the bottom will be less likely to do what they did if we have proper people put in the top tables.
Right.
Don't fool yourself. The few people that were sent home are not just, those are not the rule.
But what's next? What's next in terms of the internal institutional changes? What's next in that regard?
But I tell you what, a lot has changed already. And for instance, with the resignation of the chief accountant, he chose to resign rather than, stay and have. We have a much more efficient finance department. With the dismissal of the CEO, I'm convinced that the Secretariat is a little more, doing things a little like legally and not outside of the law. There was a lot that was going on that wasn't right.
Right.
The legal officer was issuing legal opinions that were not asked for by the commission, you know, that kind of thing, and getting involved in. So that should resolve itself. Our IT department is freer to do their job as they're supposed to, you know, that kind of thing. So things are already different, but you know what? Don't let it be said that things were wrong in there. The things were not, the things were being done.
Right.
However, the whole election debacle was when people broke the law.
Right.
But that these officers who were at the top of the hierarchy were willing to condone and to you know, to accommodate
Right.
the breaking of the law is what was wrong.
Ms. Shadick, is there anything else you would like to add?
I'd just like to say that 2 years on, the day of the 2nd of August, the 2nd of March, a day when I was very pleased with what was happening in all, because I went to polling stations, especially in Region 3. And it was a very peaceful and, you know, good exercise. You had observers all over. And that day is a pleasant one in my memory.
Right.
The events of the 3rd and 4th and 5th, the days after the 2nd, are what bring me more. Sometimes I still have nightmares about them. I still have questions that remain unanswered. I've asked the chairman, why did she disappear for so many hours? I still haven't gotten an answer. You know, things like that. And I suppose I'll go to my grave not getting those answers, which is not good enough for me, because I'm a person I like to get answers. But I am hopeful. I'm very positive that if legal changes are made and penalties attached to breaches of the law by any officer of GECOM, regardless of who it is, when it comes to the composition of the commission, while I may not be happy with the behavior of those who are there, it is what it is. It is what it always was. And so we have to live with it and live within those constraints.